Mr. Men, Little Miss, Busy Builders. Mr. Happy had decided that he wanted to build a bigger house. Now, as you probably know, Mr. Happy lives in Happyland, but he also wanted to live in some other lands too. So he bought a plot of land where the corners of Happyland, Coldland, Hotland, and Nonsense Land all met. This way, he could get the best of all worlds, or at least all lands. He would have the happiness of Happyland, snowballs in Coldland, sandcastles in Hotland, and who knows what nonsense in Nonsense Land, and it would all be on his doorstep. To build a bigger house, the first thing he needed was an architect to draw a plan of his new house. And because there were 4 different lands, Mr. Happy decided to have 4 different architects. Once Mr. Happy had decided on a plan, he found a building company, Busy Builders, which was run by Little Miss Busy. The first job was to dig the foundations. Little Miss Busy dug the trench with a digger, and Mr. Dizzy took the soil away in a dumper truck. But, being the dizzy-headed fellow he was, he dumped the soil back into the newly dug trench behind the digger. What the trench did need filling with was concrete, and that was the next job. The concrete arrived in a concrete mixer. However, Mr. Wrong drove the truck the wrong way onto the building site and got it stuck in the mud. Mr. Strong had to give him a helping hand. Once the foundations were laid, Little Miss Busy's team of builders could start building the walls. Mr. Messy got to work laying bricks, and Little Miss Tidy followed along, tidying up. Mr. Forgetful's wall had to be rebuilt, because he forgot to put any mortar between the bricks. Little Miss Dotty was mixing her own mortar in a cement mixer, although I don't think that's how you mix mortar. That looks more like strawberry jam. The walls were built and the roofers could begin work. Little Miss Somersault and Little Miss Brave were perfect for the job, as you needed a good head for heights and good balance. They laid all the tiles and made the roof watertight. While the scaffolding was up, Mr. Mischief sneaked up onto the roof and jammed huge corks into the downpipes. Luckily, Mr. Tall spotted what he was up to. Next, Little Miss Busy's team of carpenters arrived on site. All Little Miss Neat's windows and doors had perfectly square corners. Mr. Clumsy's did not. Mr. Clever used a saw to cut the timber. Little Miss Scatterbrain used a pair of scissors. Little Miss Helpful used a hammer to knock in the nails. Mr. Bump used a hammer to hit his thumb. Ouch! And Mr. Muddle made the staircase. But I think he muddled up his centimeters with his meters. While all this was going on, the plumbers were installing the heating and the water pipes. Mr. Topsy-Turvy plumbed in the taps, upside down. And Little Miss Fickle could not decide which color toilet to choose, so she installed all of them. The electricians were busy fixing all the wires and plugs. Little Miss Inventor fitted solar panels to the roof to generate electricity. She also diverted the gutter water to water the garden and insulated the house. Mr. Happy wanted an eco-friendly house. It was going to be a very green house, particularly if Mr. Funny had anything to do with it. The house was very nearly finished. It only needed decorating. Mr. Perfect perfectly painted the window frames and the doors, and Mr. Rush roared around the house hanging wallpaper. He was in such a rush, he wallpapered everything. He wallpapered the walls, and the floors, and the doors, and the windows. He even wallpapered Little Miss Tiny. Outside was still a building site, and the garden needed landscaping, so Little Miss Busy and her team got busy. They put down a patio and dug flower beds and planted shrubs and trees and laid a new lawn. It all looked very smart. Except for Mr. Muddle's towering garden gate. Finally, Mr. Happy's house was finished, and he could move in. He was very happy with his new house. And the wonderful thing about his new house was that he had a different view from each window. On the Happyland side, he could look out at all the Happyland flowers smiling back at him. On the Coldland side, he could watch Mr. Snow building a snowman. On the Hotland side, he could see Little Miss Sunshine swimming in the pool. And through the Nonsense Land window, he could see Mr. Silly picking cornflakes from a cornflake tree.